Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, WordPress or Drupal, Deciding on Your CMS. My name is Martha Herdendorf, and I'm the marketing coordinator here at Top Floor. Before we get started, I wanted to let you know that there will be a dedicated time at the end of today's webinar for questions. So if you think of something during the presentation, please feel free to submit through the questions control panel. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation, and we will collect and address them during that Q&A session at the end. And with that, I will now turn things over to our two presenters, John Bain and Tony Close.
Hello, my name is John Bain. I'm a front-end developer here at Top Floor. I've worked with WordPress for about 4 years, 2 years professionally, and I've been at Top Floor for about 9 months now.
My name is Tony Close, and I'm also a web developer here at Top Floor. I've worked with Drupal for about 8 years now, 3 of those being professionally. And I've worked for Top Floor for 1 year exactly. My anniversary was yesterday.
So what is a CMS? Almost every website consists of a basic structure built with code like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. A CMS, or content management system, is a framework that allows you to enter and update the content of your website without having to worry about the underlying code. It allows you to create reusable templates for different page types and manage things like users and form submissions. Drupal and WordPress are both popular CMS frameworks, and our goal today is to help you decide which one is best for your project.
So with traditional website development, you would have to manually create the entire HTML structure for each page. HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and it's what provides the structure for the page. CSS, or Cascading Style Sheets, is what provides the styling, so like the layout, colors, and fonts. And JavaScript adds additional functionality and allows for interaction with the page elements. So for purely static sites, you would have to build and update each page individually. This process is not scalable for large websites that can contain hundreds of different pages. With the CMS, however, a developer creates templates for each of the different page types that you have. All of the content for the pages, including the text, images, and videos, is stored in a database. And then depending on which page the user visits, the CMS will fill in the template with the proper content for that particular page. So when you create new pages in a CMS, you don't have to worry about editing any of the markup or styling. You just have to enter the content that you want to appear on that page. And as you can see here in this example, these two home listings use the same template and styles, but they have different text and images.
So we've seen an example of what that looks like on the front end, but what does a CMS look like on the back end? Here's an example of the Drupal backend. Along the left side, there are links that allow you to configure the site to fit your needs. On the right side, you can see how easy it is to fill in the content you would want to appear on the page. Here's an example of the WordPress backend, also fairly similar to what we just witnessed with Drupal. Both of the CMSs allow for easy content creation without having any coding knowledge.
So which of these CMSs is more popular? Depending on the source that you look at, the numbers might be different, but WordPress is clearly the most widely used CMS, especially when you consider the sheer number of personal blogs and simple brochure sites which can be created relatively quickly in WordPress. When you separate out personal blogs, you start to get a clearer picture of how many standard sites are built with each CMS. In this graph, you can see that WordPress tends to be used by a huge number of lower traffic sites, whereas Drupal tends to be used by a smaller number of high traffic sites. So let's take a look at some of the most popular websites that are built using the two frameworks.
So WordPress isn't only used for creating blogs and smaller brochure sites. In fact, many large companies have built their sites in the CMS, including Bloomberg Professional's corporate website, the PlayStation blog, Disney's corporate investor relations site, and most importantly, blogs about kittens.
On the Drupal side of things, we have the Weather Channel's website, which boasts over 100 million unique visitors per month. Their forecasting grid system pushes weather updates to over 2 billion locations every 15 minutes. The Economist, which is a magazine format newspaper, which has more than 250,000 daily readers. One of the reasons given for adopting a CMS for The Economist was that the editors didn't need to worry about formatting style. They can just add their text, stick in a picture, and it's ready to publish. The CMS does the rest. Then there's Whitehouse Gov, which serves as a government information portal for millions of users. The National Institutes of Health, and Harvard University. Harvard uses Drupal for their main public-facing website, as well as many interdepartmental websites. As you can see, many governmental and educational institutions use open source frameworks like Drupal and WordPress because they're free, they're well supported, and they're scalable to any size needed.
So now on to the burning question, which CMS is better? Some agencies think of Drupal and WordPress as rivals, like PlayStation versus Xbox. They pick their favorite and only develop websites within that CMS. That strategy often works because many websites have been created using either CMS. Instead of rivals, it's better to imagine Drupal and WordPress as two different tools in the same toolbox. Drupal and WordPress are more alike than they are different. The differences only start to matter when you get down into the specific details of the site you want to build. At Top Floor, we don't limit our development to just one platform. We specialize in both Drupal and WordPress development, and we are able to determine which CMS would work better for each site that we build. We'll talk a little more about how we decide in a bit, but first, before we can discuss the subtle differences between two CMSs, it's important to know how they are alike. They run on the same hosting platforms. They use the same programming languages. Both are well supported and documented. Both communities have people who are dedicated to help solve any issues you may run into. Both are infinitely themable. At Top Floor, we can create designs based on client specifications instead of having to rely on pre-made themes. Both are fully supported in our hosting system, which is Pantheon, and both have frequent updates to the CMS core to fix security issues and add additional features.
So about PHP, both CMSs run on the PHP programming languages. And just as a fun fact, PHP is a recursive acronym which stands for PHP Hypertext Preprocessor. PHP is the code that connects the basic page templates to the database, and it plugs in the content. It also runs all of the backend processes. It collects form data, and it sends emails and does a bunch of other stuff in the backend.
Both Drupal and WordPress allow for SEO optimization. Search engine optimization, or SEO, is the process of affecting the visibility of a website in a web search engine's unpaid results. For example, when a user searches for a term related to your website, highly optimized websites usually show up higher on the search results list, giving you a competitive edge. By managing things such as meta tags, we can tell the search engine specifically what each page on the website is about, so it can be found more easily in search results. Top Floor has an experienced team that uses industry standard SEO solutions, including Google Analytics, Google Tag Manager, Yoast SEO, and meta tag management. Some website frameworks have exorbitant licensing fees, which means you have to pay to use the software in addition to actually building the site. WordPress and Drupal both include open source licenses, allowing anybody to download, modify, and re-release the software under the same terms. When you have thousands of people identifying and fixing possible bugs in the code, you end up with a more robust, secure framework. This is why these CMSs have frequent updates and security patches, which should always be installed.
So now getting into the differences between the two. Drupal is great for larger, high-traffic sites because it's very customizable down to the last detail. This can make it less user-friendly out of the box, but at Top Floor, we spend time organizing the backend pages on Drupal sites to make them easier to use. Configuration management is new in the latest version of Drupal, and it really helps speed up development, especially if your workflow includes a staging site, so you can test out new content and features before launching them to the world. On WordPress and older versions of Drupal, much of the work done configuring the settings has to be duplicated on each environment. At Top Floor, we often utilize at least 3 different environments. There's the dev site for new features and fixes. There's the test site for our clients to review the changes, and then there's the live site, which is what the public sees. Configuration management allows us to transfer settings between the environments much more easily. Drupal also has a very active security team, which springs into action whenever hackers find a security hole. They reach out to the major hosting providers and make sure the hosts are prepared to handle any hacking attempts that might come through. Drupal has a very large and active community of people that contribute new features, fixes, and documentation to the project. There's a strong suite of modules which allow you to create e-commerce sites with Drupal, so you can sell products, provide quotes, manage paid subscriptions, and other stuff like that. WordPress also has some solutions for e-commerce, but they do not allow for the same level of complexity as Drupal commerce. If your business uses some kind of special API or a backend system that needs to share information with your website, it's easier to connect the two systems using Drupal. In Drupal, pages are cached automatically. Caching is where the output of a page is stored in the website for a certain length of time, and then subsequent visitors are shown the saved version of the page instead of having to reload the entire page content each time someone visits. This can help speed up the site, particularly for very high traffic sites or when a post suddenly goes viral.
WordPress is great for building sites that are less complex in structure, but might be more rich in media, such as blogs and informational brochure sites. The administration pages in WordPress are more focused on user experience. Many content editors find it easier to navigate and add or update content in WordPress. WordPress comes with a few decent themes right out of the box, and there is a huge marketplace for contributed themes that you can purchase. Drupal has fewer options for contributed themes. At Top Floor, we create custom themes for our site, which include all the functionality and designs that the client requests. This ensures that our clients are not getting a cookie-cutter site that looks identical to other sites out there. WordPress includes a feature where site updates can be installed automatically, ensuring that the core software is always up to date. This can cause headaches if an automatically installed update conflicts with any of the other plugins on the site. This is why we tend to install updates manually and test everything before pushing the updates to the live site. Because WordPress is typically used for sites with simple structures, the time it takes to build a WordPress site is often less than a Drupal site. This can lead to fewer costs associated with development, as long as there is not a lot of custom development needed for the site. Let's face it, WordPress was designed to be a blogging platform, and it does it very well. You can even add a WordPress blog to an existing website that's not built in WordPress. Looking at this chart, you can see that more blogs and news sites are built with WordPress, whereas Drupal is generally used for other types of sites.
This graph here provides a good representation of the total cost of ownership, or the TCO, for sites built with Drupal and WordPress. Drupal is the lighter blue line, and you can see that it tends to be a bit more expensive in the early planning stages of development, because Drupal sites tend to be more complex, and they often have many different types of content or e-commerce integration. The cost evens out as the site moves into design, development, and finally the launch. Developing custom features in Drupal is more straightforward from a developer's point of view, so custom functionality can be done within a reasonable budget. On the other hand, WordPress, which is the darker blue line, WordPress sites can be significantly less expensive to plan, design, develop, and launch if you keep to the standard site structure of blog posts and basic pages. But if you want to implement any custom features, the cost to do that can skyrocket.
So finally, how to choose. Essentially, there's no clear winner when it comes to CMS choice. We must look at each project individually to decide which CMS would be best. It is possible to create blogs in Drupal, but WordPress is often better for that purpose. Likewise, you can create vast, intricate e-commerce solutions in WordPress, but Drupal is often better at that. Top Floor weighs all of the requirements of your project carefully and then helps you decide which CMS would work best for your budget and timeline.
All right, do you have any questions for us? about Drupal or WordPress?
We'll give you guys a couple of minutes if you had any questions during the presentation. You can enter them in the questions control panel.
Not seeing any questions yet. Do you have any questions, Martha?
I don't. Okay, I think just a couple more minutes.
All right, so this question says, I have experimented with several themes on my WordPress domains. Do you use themes in doing custom WordPress designs?
So essentially, there's kind of two ways to approach that question. There is a way, so we don't use a theme or what we refer to as a parent theme. We would use something as a child theme, which would allow us to essentially customize a already created theme, for example, to client specifications or what we need it to do. And the point of doing that too, in some cases, is when you update themes in WordPress, if you've made any customization changes to templates, they will get overwritten when you update the parent theme. So when you create a child theme, essentially you're sort of saving all the updates you've made and preventing them from breaking when you make updates to the site.
So yeah, one thing John is talking about too is that every site that we have uses a theme. The theme is just what takes the markup and the HTML output from WordPress and it styles it and it puts it in a layout and it adds colors and fonts and stuff. But at Top Floor, we don't usually use themes that are created and released by other people. We usually start with a basic bare bones parent theme, and then we create our own custom child theme based off of that. So each of our sites has its own custom theme developed by Top Floor. And that allows us to really take full control over all of the output from WordPress or Drupal and pretty much make it look how we want to. I know a lot of people, they like to use WordPress for they have really rich media themes, which you can purchase and use, but the themes are pretty much designed to work really well for the demo site, but as soon as you get it onto your custom site that has, you know, maybe some different types of content or things are formatted slightly differently, the theme suddenly doesn't work the same way as it does on the demo site. So that's why we usually create our own custom sites from the ground up, custom themes. Does that answer your question, Gary? All right, next question is, I'm a writer and a photographer, not a designer. Could you create a style for a portfolio site?
So it really depends what you want to do, and kind of based off of what Tony just said, there are themes out of the box that will right away, you know, sort of give you that portfolio site. It may be cookie cutter and other people may be using the theme exactly as you're using it. But with WordPress, it makes it fairly simple to sort of just plug and play, essentially add images, add content, and you know, you have your website. And it's a whole sort of other process when you really want to start getting into customization of, you know, basic theme functionality. Styles, in most sort of basic themes, things like styles and fonts are all changeable through theme settings, not necessarily something you need a developer to do, but it really depends on, you know, what theme you're using and also what your sort of end goal is and how you want to display your portfolio content.
Yeah, one thing Gary mentions is that he was using the 2017 theme that comes with newer WordPress installations, and it's very basic. So Usually when you download a new installation of WordPress, it comes with a few different themes. They release one every year, so it's like 2017, 2016. And those are great for like launching, a quick blog where all you need to do is you have to have blog posts that have like dates on them and then area for content and images. But they don't really give you a lot of control over how the site structure looks and how it behaves. There are some themes that you can purchase that do have much more control over stuff like that. But like when you go with a completely custom theme, it takes a lot more development work, but it allows you to get exactly what you want out of it. And as far as adding styles to themes, inside of the theme, you can add any type of CSS styling or any type of JavaScript functionality or anything like that you want to. So if you see something like on a website where you like how you can interact with a certain website and it's using a certain type of JavaScript library and you want that same type of functionality for your site, we're able to take that functionality or something similar to it and either add it to one of our themes, or we can create something custom that does what you want your site to do. We can just add that right to the theme that we create for your website.
Okay.
So as far as next steps, Martha, would you talk a little bit more about that?
So what was the question?
The question is, what would the next steps be?
So, basically, if you wanted to talk more, we could potentially schedule a conversation. We would get, the design team involved as well as other people and the sales team, just to kind of figure out what your project would be. And we would just do kind of a discovery conversation.
Yeah, depending on what we discover during the discovery step, that would allow us to decide like if we think that Drupal or WordPress would be more appropriate. And it seems like in case of a portfolio site, WordPress might be sufficient for that if you're displaying images and content that you've created. But that would all be hashed out during the discovery process.
And actually, a couple of weeks ago, we had put on a webinar about kind of getting started with a website, defining your goals and needs. And I can actually send you a link to that if you were interested in a little bit more information. We just talked about kind of the whole next step process. So I would be happy to share that with you after this.
There's a question, could you create a design that could be used across a few different domains? So there's a few different ways to approach this too. So with both WordPress and Drupal, you can have sites that have different domains. So like if you wanted like a .com and a .net, you could have a few different domains point to the same website. Or you could have a situation where you have similar domains that are all pointing to different websites that your company hosts. So if you have like your main website and then you have like a secondary website that deals with like a certain subtopic that is related to your business, you could have that at a different domain and it could be a completely different CMS setup. And as long as you're using WordPress or Drupal for both domains, the theme would be, you'd be able to move the theme to both of those sites and then use it on both sites. So the theme the theme is pretty, I guess like unique and separate from the site itself. So once the theme is created, you can put it on as many different WordPress sites as you want to, as long as they all have the similar content structure that you're using for your main site. There's a question, can I get copies of both presentations? I think we can put those out on our website, links to our other presentations.
Yeah, and in fact, as a follow-up to this presentation, I'll be sending out an email that includes a link to this presentation. And if you have any other specific questions, we can send out. We've done a ton of different webinars in the past that cover all different topics. So I would be happy to share any information that we can.
There's a question about having both a portfolio site and a blog. So one thing we mentioned in the presentation is that you can have a WordPress blog attached to a site that is already created and could even be built with a different CMS. But generally, when we're starting like a new website project, we will have like the main website that has your different pages about the different topics of your site. And then we'll also have the blog included into that same website. So the blog would just be like a page on that website that lists all the blog posts and allows you to filter through those. But if you already have your sites set up where they're both WordPress sites and one is a portfolio site and one is a blog, we could probably create a theme that would work for both sites as long as the structure is similar. That would have to be something that we look at during the discovery portion.
Any more questions over there?
Any more questions?
Okay, if there aren't any more questions, then we can wrap this up. And I just wanted to thank you both, John and Tony, for taking the time to put this together. And like I said before, we will send a follow-up email within the next day with a link to the full presentation and any previous presentations that you may be interested in as well. And so I just, on behalf of all of Top Floor and everyone in this room, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your afternoon.
Thank you.